If you're drafted, will you fight for your country?
I'm not saying nothing about things that I don't have to say. I don't have to say nothing about that. They haven't drafted me yet, and it's a touchy thing, touchy question, and I'd rather not say nothing.
My decision was to blow the place, and I was in intelligence, so usually they listened to what I said, so called demolition in. They set charges on all four corners of the building, and they blew the place up. We didn't check. We just followed them 2 miles into Cambodia, which we weren't supposed to do because at that time we couldn't cross the border, but we went anyway. We're on our way back. And saw a lot of South Vietnamese standing around, you know. They told us they were taking the bodies out, you know. You know, I was noticing that the South Vietnamese were like looking at me kind of strange, like, you know, like sort of like disgust in their face. But it didn't dawn on me what had happened until like, I said, let me see the bodies and see how many officers that we had killed. And they were all like kids. But that kind of like took me out, you know. I really couldn't believe it, you know. And at first I thought that maybe the South Vietnamese had killed these people, you know, after we went through, but it wasn't true. So we'd found out that there were 49 kids in the basement. There were 2 priests who had came from the orphanage that the North Vietnamese had ran them out of the orphanage. And they were taking cover in the rubber plantation. You know, after I saw that, it was like, you know, it was like total disgust on my part. You know, I really felt horrible about it. And like it really had set in, like, you know, what I had done. It really came to me, you know. I mean, I was really like conscious of what I had done. After that point, I shot opium, morphine constantly. Like I had like a habit that would cost New York City maybe $200 a day. I was really strung out.
I had about 60 days left, 64, 65 days left to do on the Nam down south. And I was singing a song that I had made up from, you know, another tune. And it was, soon I'll be going back to where the rats and the roaches roam. And this guy who was next to me said to me, what do you mean? You got rats in your house? So I turned to him, and he was a hunk. I turned to him and I said, yeah, I got rats and roaches in my house. Don't you have any in yours? And he said to me, no. He said he'd never seen a rat. And it started me thinking, because soon I would be going back home and he would be going back home. I would be going back to the rats and the roaches because I knew they were there. And if you come home right now, you can hear them. If you're eating in my kitchen, you'll hear them talking. And, and he would be going back to his nice California pad. And for me, the problem would begin again. And for him, there would be no problem.
The United States ain't doing nothing for us, man. We busted our ass, we went over there to an army to kill, and 99% of us got killed, and we didn't get nothing for it. They give us a piece of paper that says to us, we're a Vietnam veteran, and we can get disability, and we can get this, and we can get a job, and we ain't got nothing. We gotta get our welfare. You understand?
First you tell us that it is manly to keep your word. All right, if you are a man, you keep your word. And now all that the black people in this country are demanding, and even the black people in the whole world are demanding, is that you keep your word. You told us we were free. Well then, show us that we're free. You told us that there is justice, equality for all in this country. Well then, stick to your word and let us see the justice and equality for all. Or else admit to us that you're not a man, you're a worm, you're afraid of us, you're afraid to give us equal stand. You're afraid that if you give us equal ground that we will match you and we will override you. And if that's what you're afraid of us, then tell us that just what you're afraid of. But don't keep hiding it from us and holding this up to us, and every time we ask you for something, you give us a little bit of something, and it's all tokenism. We don't want tokenism. And there are most black men in this world that don't want charity. And yet still every time we ask you for something, you give us a little piece, a little piece. You're playing games with us. We're not children. We're big men. I've seen my father have to put up with all kinds of stuff. He was a big man. He raised a family. He went down south, and he had to go around to the back door with his wife.
The war in Vietnam is over, and the junkies are coming home, angry and scared and strung out. In New York City, there are 300,000 Vietnam-era veterans, and 40,000 of them are addicts. Most of them began using heroin, barbiturates, and amphetamines in Vietnam, and most of them came home with less than honorable drug-related discharges. These GIs are ineligible for veterans' educational, home loan, and employment benefits. They get no long-term VA medical or psychological treatment for their addiction. They're offered only methadone, a numbing drug with which some men can function and others can't.
I went to Vietnam in September of 1969, and during the time that I was there, I went through certain experiences that led me into using drugs. You know, one of the experiences that I recall was during a night ambush. I killed a 12-year-old kid, you know, which was something that I couldn't handle at that time. You know, seeing him dead, laying on the ground the next morning, it really stayed on my mind. So I started using drugs, and I kept that up until I came back to the States.
I couldn't see myself taking part in nothing where I would help and aid in any way to shooting and killing these Asiatic, dark, black people who haven't called me nigger, haven't lynched me, they haven't deprived me of freedom, justice, and equality, they haven't assassinated my leaders. I couldn't see myself shooting little black babies and black children that don't even have food to eat.
When I used to shoot dope, I didn't have fear. That was the whole thing about it. To keep myself going through the day in combat, I would get high. I would be under the influence of some type of drugs, and I wouldn't feel fear. But after coming down from the drugs, I would start feeling fear, and that's when I would go back to getting high again.
This picture right here describes me in the court. It shows the white judge with an evil face. It has the jury over here, 12 whites with all evil faces. So all the jury were looking angry, and the judge was looking mad. And here we was just a matter of time of going through the court procedures, but I knew where I was headed. And before that, I had drawn a picture up here, a little cartoon with me thinking, showing over my head. And you see a jail, which is where they finally sent me to.
Will you go into service?
Even though I did receive the Silver Star and Bronze Stars medals for valor, I didn't, I was no hero.
How were you treated?
By the military and by society, very bad.
How?
Opportunities, I didn't have any. Job, I couldn't find one. Treatment programs, they didn't exist. Methadone, I didn't want to get into methadone because that was just another crutch, another drug.
And what did that make you feel like, all that rejection?
Like I was back in the Nam.
The Veterans Administration offers the addicted vet no rehabilitation or retraining. Just a 6-week methadone detoxification program in a VA hospital or indefinite outpatient methadone maintenance. And while methadone may kill the need for heroin, it's more addictive than heroin. And the VA treats only 988 men. New York City treats 4,000 more with methadone, with 2,000 on waiting lists. But that leaves 35,000 addicted Vietnam veterans without treatment. The city's welfare department has a responsibility for providing public assistance for 6,000 Vietnam vets, many of whom are addicts. As early as 3 every morning, the vets begin lining up outside the understaffed Veterans Welfare Center on 8th Avenue. The glass doors of the center have been replaced with steel. They were destroyed early this winter by vets battering against them to get in.
Well, I tell you what, I wasn't here at 4 o'clock. I just got here about 8 o'clock.
So how come you're up at the front of the line? Are you going to try and pull your way in here?
I am. I'm going in when the crowd goes in.
Even that's not fair to your brothers online, though, is it?
Look, only the strong survive. It's a dog-eat-dog world out here. You better believe it.
Dog world in this land.
That's right. And that's the whole lie.
You're going to push ahead of them, huh?
Watch me. Watch me. Watch me. They made us animals, so why not act like one and be one until we get our check and come on out of there. Then we human beings then. Then we human beings again.
That was the situation more than 2 months ago, and although Robert Carroll, Director of Community Affairs for the department, promised in a statement on December 6, 1972, that within 1 month the vets would be in and out of the cold, now, 2.5 months later, the men are still freezing.
We're not asking for anything. We're not asking for any favors. All we want is what's ours. Now, there are many black veterans who are coming back, and they're mad. They're angry. Do you think that they're going to sit down through this? Our fathers didn't have the knowledge that we have. They sat through it. But there are other black youth that are not going to sit through it. We know about Che. We know about Fanon. We've read the books of our revolution. We've listened to Mao and his quotations. We know where we stand. We're not going to sit for it. We're asking, and if we ask and we don't get, we're prepared to stand up and take it. If I ask a man, I tell a man I am hungry. I tell him I am cold. And I ask him to do something about my condition. And this man holds a loaf of bread right in front of me so I can see it, and I keep asking him, I'm begging him to please give me a slice of the loaf of bread. I am hungry. Then it is known by every psychologist that the next step in the progression is I am going to knock him upside the head and take the bread from him. I'm not going to starve to death.
You can see right now, we standing out here in the cold. From dudes be here from, like, you got to get here at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's 5 below zero. Shit like that don't make no sense, man.
See, when you're on the front line of welfare, it's just like being in Vietnam. Freezing your ass off. That's all I say.
You still gotta fight.
You gotta fight.
Actually, you never stop
because
fighting.
When I came down here on the 19th of last month to go upstairs to pick up my check, it was on the 3rd floor. That ain't my regular floor. When I went up there, the lady called me a nigger. I had an offer in her mouth to get my check.
I went to a telephone company for jobs, and they told me, you don't have enough education to do the job. Your rank is, your score is not high enough, but my score was high enough to do 3 years in NOM. But it's not high enough to connect the line in the telephone building. If I could get me a job where I could be my own man, they make me think that they're feeling sorry for me. Give me this, give me what I need. This is like a pet, like a dog, you know, like give him, you have to be fed now, give him some food, you know?
Anybody can make people stand out on the line, you understand, and wait, you understand? But yet and still, when I got my fingers blowed away in the numb, you understand, wasn't no waiting, you understand what I mean?
How do I feel about America? Well, I tell you what, this is, I was born here. You understand? I was born here. I live here. This is my home.
It ain't nothing.
See? I feel all right about it, but I say treat a person like they're supposed to be treated. You understand? Like a human being.
Acting on his own, Alfonso Yacano, director of the Veterans Welfare Center, invited Channel 13 to film inside. But the following day, he told us he'd spoken with Mr. Carroll, and that Carroll had told him to withdraw his invitation. When we arrived to film the next morning, Mr. Yacano met us at the door.
No.
You invited us here.
No, I did not invite you.
You invited us here. Excuse me, please take your hand away from the camera. You invited us down here.
No, I did not invite you, man.
You did invite me, and now why can't we come in?
I'm sorry, did you speak to Mr. Carroll?
You invited me.
I did not.
Now why can't you come in?
I
What's going on in there that we can't see? Inside the center, the vets wait and wait. The Vietnam vets, plus 10,000 from other wars, a total of 16,000, have just 55 workers in this one building to help them. They come back day after day, and if you're an addict and take your methadone, and addicted veterans must take methadone to receive welfare, you get a check every 2 weeks for $80. Veterans with drug-related discharges receive no unemployment insurance. Jobs are so hard to find that 75,000 or 25% of the Vietnam vets in New York are without them. And every veteran discharged with a history of drug abuse has special program number 384, a code for drug abuse, permanently affixed to his records. Information which is freely available to the public and employers.
All we're asking, no one wants to see blood. No one likes the smell of blood. No one wants war. Anyone who's been in war doesn't want war. Everyone knows what it is to see the inside of a man's gut hanging out and see your friends die, see relatives die. No one wants to regress back to the state of mind where you have to think it's all for the cause, therefore my mother has to die, my wife has to die, my brothers and sisters have to die. No one wants that. But you're pushing us to it. You're leaving us no choice. We're asking, we're begging. The students up at Columbia, they ask. The brothers down south ask. The brothers in Latin America, the brothers in Africa, they're all asking. All they're doing is asking. Our fathers asked. Our grandfathers asked. The presidents of our universities, our colleges had to go to your back doors to beg that their children be given just enough money so that they could be taught something to live off. And yet still they asked and asked and asked, and you refused to give them anything. Now, we're just about out of patience. We're not going to ask anymore. The news media says that it's only the young that are militant, only the young that want this and want that. Okay, but we're 40% of the black population now. Or we were a year ago, and still yet we're climbing. Before long, we'll be 50%, 55%, and then we'll have the command. We're not going to take it. We're not going to take sitting in rotten parks and in places that just aren't fit for living. We're not going to take it. There's a limit to a man's patience, and everyone knows that God, Christ, heaven, everyone knows that what we're asking is not $1 million. All we're asking for is humanity. We're asking to be allowed to live like human beings. And God, you tell us that this is too much to ask. You're sick. You're definitely sick. How can you tell me that it's too much to ask to be a human being?
One addicted veteran returned home to find that his wife had left him.
And when I got there, she wasn't there. So, you know, my father-in-law was there with the kids, so I asked her where she at. So he tells me she's up in New Jersey with some other guy. You know, I'm saying that fucked with me because we were just beginning to start you know, like a new relationship between me and her. Some kind of understanding, which we never got from Jump Street.
Your old lady's shagging up with somebody else. She's in bed with somebody else. Your best friend's probably wearing your pajamas right now. You know, so fuck it. Let him enjoy himself. You enjoyed it. So what happens to you now? You know, you keep dwelling on it, you split from here behind it, you go shoot dope behind it. Or you just gonna learn to deal with shit like that.
Like you're at the fucking door, but you don't want to open it. Because you're one fucked up cat, and I've been watching you for about the last 4 fucking days, man, all this bullshit you've been going through. You got a lot of shit in your fucking belly, and all you want to do is sit on it. I want you to fucking relate to it. Max, how does the fuck that make you feel? That's what the fuck we want to know. What are your fucking feelings, Max? Your fucking old lady is out there fucking some other dude, Max. And I want to know what the fuck that does to you. I don't want to hear no bullshit.
I tried talking to her.
No, Max. Bullshit.
Just pick her up and smack her, man.
Why would you pick her up and smack her?
What are the feelings, Max? The feelings, the feelings.
Feelings that I can't explain them.
She's fucking somebody else. How do you feel? Oh, just telling us you can't feel nothing. She's fucking somebody else. How will you feel about it?
Plenty, man.
What is it?
I tell you, it's a fucked up feeling. The type of feeling that I just want to get her in my hands, man, choke her, pull her fucking eyes out.
What else?
Out of what?
You understand? Pull them out of her motherfucking head. Just grab her, man, just mutilate her.
Where's that coming
Dig,
from?
I'm a motherfucking man, Jim. If you're gonna be my wife, you're gonna be my wife. Why the fuck you fucking somebody else?
In 1971, a congressional study said that drugs in South Vietnam were more plentiful than cigarettes and chewing gum. Another report estimated 30,000 American heroin addicts in the country. Narcotics were eroding discipline. Drug abuse, concluded an official survey, had become a military problem.
America's public enemy #1 in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive. I have asked the Congress to provide the legislative authority and the funds to fuel this kind of an offensive. This will be a worldwide offensive dealing with the problems of sources of supply as well as Americans who may be stationed abroad wherever they are in the world. It will be government-wide, pulling together the 9 different fragmented areas within the government in which this problem is now being handled. And it will be nationwide in terms of a new educational program that we trust will result from the discussions that we have had. With regard to this offensive, it is necessary first to have a new organization. And the new organization will be within the White House. Dr. Jaffe, who will be one of the briefers here today, will be the man directly responsible. He will report directly to me. And he will have the responsibility to take all of the government agencies, 9, that deal with the problems of rehabilitation, in which his primary responsibilities will be research and education, and see that they work not at cross purposes, but work together in dealing with the problem. If we're going to have a successful offensive, we need more money. Consequently, I'm asking the Congress for $155 million in new funds, which will bring the total amount this year in the budget for drug abuse, both in enforcement and treatment, to over $350 million. As far as the new money is concerned, incidentally, I have made it clear to the leaders that if this is not enough, if more can be used, if Dr. Jaffe, after studying this problem, finds that we can use more, more will be provided. In order to defeat this enemy, which is causing such great concern, and correctly so, to so many American families, money will be provided to the extent that it is necessary and to the extent that it will be useful. And finally, in order for this program to be effective, it is necessary that it be conducted on a basis in which the American people all join in it. That's why the meeting was bipartisan. Bipartisan because we needed the support of the Congress, but bipartisan because we needed the leadership of members of the Congress in this field. Fundamentally, it is essential for the American people to be alerted to this danger, to recognize that it is a danger that will not pass with the passing of the war in Vietnam, which has brought to our attention the fact that a number of young Americans have become addicts as they serve abroad, whether in Vietnam or Europe or other places.
The North Carolina mob is run by men who know a lot about the military. 10 of the top men in this organization are former sergeants in the Army or the Air Force. Federal authorities identify this man as the head of the North Carolina mob, Leslie Ike Atkinson, Goldsboro, North Carolina, former Master Sergeant, United States Army.
I don't know no other black guy had no drugs that weren't cut. I don't know not a single one. I've been in Marion, I've been in Atlanta, I've been in Lewisburg, stationed in these places and everything like that.
Until his retirement last year, Martin Pera directed the federal government's investigation of the North Carolina mob. Pera says law enforcement officials were slow to acknowledge the importance of this new mob because its leaders are black. Is this network of black, non-commissioned military officers still active today?
Oh, yes, I would say so.
This is black organized crime?
Yes, yes. In a nutshell, that's exactly what it is.
There have always been blacks in organized crime operations, but never at the top. This new mob has already staked out much of the heroin business for itself, and authorities say it is beginning to use its well-disciplined organization to compete with the mafia in other areas of criminal activity. The North Carolina mob is this country's newest organized crime family. These pictures were made with a special night lens in Fayetteville, North Carolina, a center for a new mob that is now competing with the American mafia. The leaders of this organization are not from New York or Chicago. They are from small towns in North Carolina. They are black, and they have become rich by taking away from the mafia much of the heroin business in this country. This is the way much of this new mob's heroin arrives in this country, in planes like this one, an Air Force jet carrying military cargo. The genius of the North Carolina mob has been its ability to use the American military to move its heroin from Southeast Asia to this country.
We have several military bases in the state of North Carolina.
Rufus Edmiston, the Attorney General of North Carolina.
We've even had drugs coming in dead bodies. They come in chair legs. They come in duffel bags with fake bottoms. And it's not that we don't welcome the military in North Carolina. It's simply a fact of life that does make the importation of heroin very easy.
Atkinson is now in federal prison, but authorities believe he still runs the North Carolina mob. It was during the that Atkinson and the other sergeants formed their tightly knit organization. Black soldiers scheduled to leave were recruited as heroin couriers and became soldiers in the North Carolina mob. Harold Beauchamp is now in prison. He went AWOL and worked in the heroin business.
Once you have gotten to position of sergeant, then you have a relative freedom. And in that time, you have learned the military. Therefore, you make the military work for you. So you got another sideline, which is narcotics that you make work for you long in the military line.
What's the chance of being caught by military police?
Nil, unless you're stupid.
For the North Carolina mob, even the tragedies of the war were turned into opportunities to move heroin. But you put drugs in the coffins?
Of course, you put it in the coffins. Why? I mean, you're not harming anyone, are you? Yeah, I mean, half of the time you'll find that that is the best way.
But federal and state investigators say even though the military is out of the North Carolina mob is still operating out of other overseas bases.